It was a quiet Thursday afternoon at Pinecrest Mall, an upscale shopping center tucked away in the heart of Los Angeles. The mall buzzed with its usual energy, families strolling through the corridors, teenagers laughing over milkshakes, and shoppers browsing through racks of clothes or testing out the latest gadgets. Among them, blending seamlessly into the crowd, was Keanu Reeves. Dressed casually in his signature laid-back style, a pair of faded jeans, comfortable sneakers, and a hoodie, he looked like just another visitor enjoying a day off. Keanu wasn't there for any grand purpose. He had no entourage trailing behind him, no cameras flashing in his face, and no script to follow. For once, he was simply living life as an ordinary person, savoring moments that most people take for granted. He wandered from store to store, occasionally picking up items to examine them more closely. At one point, he found himself admiring a sleek leather jacket in a high-end boutique window, though he didn't go inside. Instead, he stood there for a moment, lost in thought, before moving on. What made this outing special for Keanu was how normal it felt. Despite being one of Hollywood's biggest stars, known worldwide for movies like The Matrix and John Wick, he preferred staying grounded. Fame hadn't changed him. If anything, it had taught him to appreciate simplicity even more. Today, he wanted nothing more than to enjoy the little things: a warm cup of coffee, a friendly chat with a cashier, or the soothing sound of water flowing from the mall's central fountain. As Keanu made his way toward the food court, he couldn't help but notice the diversity of people around him. There were young couples holding hands, older women sharing stories over slices of cake, and kids running around with balloons tied to their wrists. It reminded him of why he loved places like this. They brought people together, offering a sense of community in the middle of a bustling city. He decided to grab a coffee from his favorite cafe, where the barista greeted him with a smile. "Regular order?" she asked, already reaching for the espresso machine. Keanu nodded, grateful for the small familiarity. While waiting for his drink, he leaned against the counter, observing the scene around him. A group of teenagers nearby was debating which phone model to buy, while a father tried to calm down his crying toddler. Everything seemed so ordinary, yet beautiful in its own way. Keanu took a deep breath, feeling content. This was exactly what he needed after weeks of filming and promotional events. Here, he could be invisible, unbothered by the constant attention that came with being famous. But not everyone saw him as invisible. Across the mall, a new security guard named Marcus was starting his first week on the job. Tall and broad-shouldered, Marcus carried himself with confidence, eager to prove himself in his new role. He had been hired because of his sharp instincts and dedication, traits he hoped would make him stand out among his colleagues. However, his enthusiasm sometimes bordered on overzealousness, especially when it came to enforcing rules. Marcus had heard rumors about shoplifters targeting malls in the area, and he was determined not to let anything slip past him. As he patrolled the corridors, his eyes scanned every corner, searching for anything or anyone that seemed out of place. That's when he spotted Keanu. Standing near a high-end electronics store, Keanu appeared to be glancing at the displays without showing much interest in buying anything. To Marcus, this behavior raised red flags. Why is he just standing there? Marcus wondered aloud, narrowing his eyes. Most shoppers either entered the store or moved on quickly, but Keanu lingered, seemingly content to observe rather than engage. Marcus didn't recognize the man's face. He wasn't the type to keep up with celebrity gossip, but something about Keanu's casual demeanor struck him as suspicious. Was he casing the place? Planning something? Determined to get answers? Marcus began keeping tabs on Keanu. Over the next hour, he noticed that the man didn't stick to one area. Instead, he drifted from store to store, stopping occasionally to talk to employees or sit by the fountain. Each time, Marcus grew more convinced that something wasn't right. Why would someone spend so much time wandering around without making a purchase? And why did he seem so comfortable chatting with random staff members? To Marcus, these actions added up to one conclusion: trouble. He tightened his grip on his walkie-talkie, ready to act if necessary. Little did he know, his assumptions were about to lead him down a path he never expected. Meanwhile, Keanu remained blissfully unaware of the watchful eyes following him. Oblivious to the storm brewing in the background, he continued his leisurely exploration of the mall, soaking in the sights and sounds of everyday life. At that moment, neither man could have predicted how their paths would collide, or the surprising lessons they would both learn as a result. As Marcus continued to observe Keanu from a distance, his suspicions only grew stronger. The more he watched, the more convinced he became that something wasn't quite right. To him, Keanu's behavior seemed odd, almost too casual for someone who was supposedly just visiting the mall. He noticed how Keanu would stop occasionally to chat with store employees or compliment their work. While these interactions might have appeared harmless to others, Marcus interpreted them differently. Why is he talking to so many people? Marcus thought to himself. Is he trying to distract them while scoping out the place? Marcus tightened his grip on his walkie-talkie as he followed Keanu through the mall. His mind raced with possibilities. Was this man planning to steal something? Or worse, was he part of a larger scheme targeting the mall? Marcus had heard stories about organized groups working together to exploit security weaknesses in shopping centers like Pinecrest. Every detail about Keanu, the scruffy beard, the unassuming hoodie, the lack of visible shopping bags, seemed to confirm his growing suspicion. Finally, unable to ignore his instincts any longer, Marcus decided it was time to confront the man. He approached Keanu cautiously, his posture rigid and his tone firm. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said, stepping into Keanu's path near the fountain area. "Can I help you find something?" Keanu looked up, slightly surprised by the sudden interruption. He had been scrolling through his phone, taking a moment to relax after grabbing his coffee. With his characteristic calmness, he smiled politely and replied, "Oh, no thanks. I'm just hanging out for a bit." The answer did little to ease Marcus's concerns. If anything, it made him even more suspicious. "Hanging out?" Marcus repeated, his voice tinged with skepticism. "Are you meeting someone here? Do you work at one of the stores?" Keanu shook his head, still smiling. "Nope, just enjoying the atmosphere," he said lightly, gesturing toward the bustling crowd around them. "It's a nice place." But Marcus wasn't satisfied. Something about Keanu's vague responses struck him as evasive. Why wouldn't this guy give a straight answer? And why did he seem so unfazed by the questioning? Determined to get to the bottom of things, Marcus pressed further. "Look, we don't allow loitering here," he said, his tone sharpening. "If you're not shopping or meeting someone, I'm going to need you to move along." At this point, Keanu realized that Marcus wasn't going to back down easily. Though he found the situation amusing, he didn't want to cause a scene or embarrass the young guard. "All right, no problem," Keanu said with a nod, standing up from the bench. "I'll keep moving." Despite his polite response, Marcus remained unconvinced. As Keanu walked away, Marcus kept a close eye on him, watching his every move. He noticed how Keanu paused briefly to thank a cashier who held the door open for him, and exchanged a few words with a janitor mopping the floor nearby. These small acts of kindness only deepened Marcus's confusion. If this man really was up to no good, why was he being so friendly to everyone? By now, several shoppers had begun to take notice of the exchange between Keanu and Marcus. Some whispered among themselves, speculating about what was happening. One woman leaned over to her friend and said, "Isn't that Keanu Reeves? You know, the actor?" Her companion shrugged dismissively. "Nah, can't be. Celebrities don't hang out here." Marcus overheard the comment but dismissed it immediately. To him, it sounded like typical fan speculation, people mistaking random strangers for famous faces. Besides, even if this man was someone important, it didn't change the fact that he was acting strangely. Marcus prided himself on following protocol and staying vigilant. Letting his guard down because of idle gossip wasn't an option. As Keanu wandered into another section of the mall, Marcus decided to shadow him discreetly. He wanted to gather more evidence before making any accusations. But the longer he trailed Keanu, the more frustrated he became. Nothing Keanu did seemed outright suspicious. He simply moved from one area to another, occasionally stopping to admire window displays or strike up conversations with staff members. Yet his actions continued to defy Marcus's expectations of how a normal shopper should behave. Eventually, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something. Maybe Keanu was smarter than he looked, deliberately avoiding anything that could incriminate him. Or maybe Marcus was reading too much into innocent behavior. Either way, the uncertainty gnawed at him, fueling his determination to resolve the situation once and for all. When Keanu finally settled down again, this time near a bookstore, Marcus made his move. Approaching him with renewed authority, Marcus crossed his arms and said firmly, "Sir, I've asked you multiple times to clarify your purpose here. Since you haven't provided a satisfactory explanation, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." Keanu looked up, clearly startled by the escalation. For a brief moment, he considered explaining who he was, but then thought better of it. Instead, he chose to remain composed, knowing that arguing wouldn't solve anything. "All right," he said calmly, rising to his feet. "I'll go. No need to make a big deal out of it." His quiet compliance only added to Marcus's frustration. Most people would have put up some kind of resistance, but Keanu's willingness to leave without protest left Marcus feeling uneasy. Still, he told himself that he'd done the right thing. Rules were rules, and it was his job to enforce them, even if it meant kicking out someone who might turn out to be completely harmless. As Keanu exited the mall, Marcus exhaled deeply, feeling a mix of relief and lingering doubt. He had handled the situation according to procedure, but something about it didn't sit right with him. Little did he know, the real challenge was yet to come, and it would force him to confront not only his assumptions, but also the consequences of jumping to conclusions. Keanu stepped out of the mall, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his hoodie. The sun was still shining brightly, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Despite the confrontation, he wasn't angry or upset, just a little surprised. He had encountered overzealous security guards before, but this time felt different. Marcus's insistence and refusal to listen had been unexpected, especially since Keanu had done nothing wrong. Still, he didn't want to dwell on it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed the number for the mall's management office. "Hi, this is Keanu," he said in his usual calm tone when someone picked up on the other end. "I'm calling because there seems to have been a misunderstanding with one of your security staff members. I was asked to leave the property earlier today." The voice on the line immediately shifted from professional detachment to wide-eyed disbelief. "Mr. Reeves? Oh my goodness, we're so sorry to hear that. Can you tell us what happened?" Keanu briefly explained the situation, emphasizing that he didn't blame anyone personally. "It's probably just a case of mistaken identity," he added kindly. "But I think it would be good to clarify things so something like this doesn't happen again." Word spread quickly through the mall's administrative team. Within minutes, managers were scrambling to verify Keanu's claim, and their suspicions turned into shock when they realized who he was. Not only was Keanu a frequent visitor to Pinecrest Mall, but he also held a significant stake in its ownership through his investment firm. This revelation sent ripples through the entire staff. How could they have let this happen? Back inside the mall, Marcus had no idea about the storm brewing behind the scenes. After escorting Keanu out, he returned to his post, trying to shake off the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. His supervisor, Linda, approached him moments later, her expression unreadable. "Marcus," she began cautiously, "can you come with me for a moment? We need to talk." Confused but obedient, Marcus followed her to a quiet corner near the management offices. Linda wasted no time getting to the point. "Do you remember the man you escorted out earlier?" she asked, folding her arms across her chest. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied, straightening up. "He wasn't cooperating, and I thought it best to ask him to leave." Linda sighed deeply, rubbing her temples as if bracing herself for bad news. That man is Keanu Reeves." Marcus blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "Who?" "Keanu Reeves," Linda repeated slowly, enunciating each syllable. "You know the actor? Star of The Matrix? John Wick? Owns part of this mall?" For a split second, Marcus felt like the ground beneath him had vanished. His mind raced as fragments of memory replayed in his head. The casual demeanor, the polite responses, the way Keanu hadn't argued when asked to leave. Could it really have been him? It seemed impossible. Celebrities didn't just wander around. Malls unnoticed, did they? I didn't recognize him, Marcus stammered, his face flushing red with embarrassment. I swear I thought he was suspicious. He wasn't shopping and he kept talking to people. Linda held up a hand to stop him. We understand you were doing your job, Marcus, but this is a big deal. Mr. Reeves has requested a meeting with senior management and will need to address this properly. As Marcus processed the weight of the situation, panic began to set in. What had he done? Had he jeopardized his career on his very first week? The thought of facing Keanu again filled him with dread. Would the actor demand an apology? Or worse, would he insist on terminating Marcus's position? Meanwhile, Keanu arrived back at the mall, accompanied by a representative from the management team. He walked through the same doors he'd exited not long ago, drawing curious glances from shoppers and employees alike. Word had already traveled fast among the staff, and several people whispered excitedly as they recognized him. One cashier even squealed quietly when she saw him pass by. Keanu, true to form, smiled warmly and gave a small wave, putting everyone at ease. In the management office, the atmosphere was tense but respectful. Keanu sat across from the head of security and the mall's general manager, flanked by his representative. They apologized profusely for the incident, assuring him that, such a mistake wouldn't happen again. Keanu listened patiently, nodding occasionally, and reassured them that he bore no ill will. Everyone makes mistakes, he said gently. What matters is how we learn from them. When it came time for Marcus to join the discussion, his nerves were practically unbearable. He hesitated at the doorway, unsure whether to step inside or turn and run. Finally, summoning every ounce of courage, he entered the room and stood awkwardly before Keanu. Mr. Reeves, he began, his voice trembling, I am so sorry for what happened earlier. I had no idea who you were, and I never meant to disrespect you. Please forgive me. To Marcus's astonishment, Keanu didn't react with anger or disappointment. Instead, he rose from his seat, extended a hand, and offered a reassuring smile. It's okay, Marcus, he said sincerely. You were just doing your job. I appreciate your dedication to keeping the mall safe. Let's use this as a learning opportunity for both of us. Relief washed over Marcus, though he still couldn't believe how gracious Keanu was being. Most people in his position might have demanded consequences, but Keanu chose understanding instead. As the meeting wrapped up, Keanu suggested implementing additional training for security staff to ensure similar situations could be avoided in the future. The management team eagerly agreed, grateful for his constructive approach. Later that evening, as Marcus reflected on the day's events, he couldn't help but feel humbled. Meeting Keanu had been intimidating enough, but discovering the depth of his humility and kindness left a lasting impression. For the first time in his career, Marcus realized that enforcing rules wasn't just about catching wrongdoers. It was about treating everyone fairly, regardless of appearances. And while he knew he'd made a colossal error, he also understood that it wasn't too late to grow from it. The next morning, Marcus reported to work with a renewed sense of purpose. Though whispers about the incident followed him throughout the day, he held his head high, determined to prove himself. Little did he know, the lessons he learned from Keanu would shape not only his career but also the way he viewed the world and the people in it. The days following the incident at Pinecrest Mall were a whirlwind of emotions for Marcus. After meeting Keanu Reeves face-to-face and experiencing his unexpected kindness, Marcus couldn't shake off the weight of what had happened. He replayed the entire situation in his mind over and over again. How he'd misjudged Keanu, how he'd let his assumptions cloud his judgment, and how close he'd come to ruining not just his own career, but also someone else's day. At first, Marcus was terrified about the consequences. Would he lose his job? Would Keanu decide to take legal action or demand his dismissal? These thoughts haunted him as he went through the motions of his daily routine. But to his immense relief, no such thing happened. Instead, Keanu's response had been nothing short of extraordinary. Rather than punishing Marcus for his mistake, Keanu chose to see it as an opportunity to teach, to guide, and to inspire change. Word of the incident spread quickly among the mall staff, becoming the talk of the break room and water cooler conversations. Employees whispered about the celebrity, mix-up with equal parts awe and amusement. Some teased Marcus lightly, calling him the guy who kicked out Keanu Reeves, while others praised him for handling the aftermath with grace. But beneath the jokes and chatter lay a deeper lesson that resonated with everyone: the importance of treating every person with respect, regardless of their appearance or status. For Marcus, this realization hit hard. As a security guard, he had always prided himself on being vigilant and proactive. He believed that enforcing rules strictly was the best way to keep them all safe. But now, he understood that there was more to the job than simply identifying potential threats. It wasn't enough to follow protocols blindly. He needed to approach each situation with empathy and open-mindedness. Every visitor deserved to be treated fairly, whether they were dressed in designer clothes or wore a hoodie like Keanu. Determined to make amends, Marcus threw himself into improving his skills. The management team, inspired by Keanu's suggestion, organized additional training sessions for all security personnel. These sessions focused not only on conflict resolution and customer service, but also on recognizing implicit biases. Experts were brought in to discuss how preconceived notions could lead to misunderstandings, and how those misunderstandings could harm both individuals and organizations. Marcus attended every session eagerly, soaking up the knowledge like a sponge. He learned techniques for de-escalating tense situations, strategies for building rapport with visitors, and ways to remain calm under pressure. More importantly, he began to challenge his own assumptions. Whenever he found himself judging someone based on their looks or behavior, he reminded himself of Keanu standing patiently by the fountain, smiling despite being accused of wrongdoing. That memory served as a powerful reminder to pause, think critically, and act with compassion. Keanu, meanwhile, continued to visit the mall regularly, much to the delight of employees and shoppers alike. His presence became something of a legend, a symbol of humility and grace in the face of adversity. To Marcus's surprise, Keanu didn't distance himself after the incident. On the contrary, he seemed genuinely interested in helping Marcus grow. During one of his visits, Keanu approached Marcus and struck up a conversation. "How are things going?" Keanu asked casually, leaning against a railing near the food court. Marcus froze for a moment, caught off guard by the actor's friendly demeanor. Good, sir," he replied nervously. I'm trying to do better." Keanu chuckled softly. "You don't have to call me sir. Just Keanu is fine." He paused, studying Marcus's expression. "Look, I know mistakes happen. What matters is what you do after. From what I've heard, you're taking steps to improve. That takes courage." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. Here was one of the most famous men in the world, complimenting him. Not because of his achievements, but because of his willingness to learn. It was humbling, to say the least. "Thank you," Marcus managed to say. "I really appreciate your understanding. I promise I'll keep working hard." Over time, Keanu's casual check-ins became a regular occurrence. Sometimes he'd stop by Marcus's post to chat about life, work, or even movies. Other times, he'd share stories from his own experiences, how he too had faced judgment and criticism throughout his career, and how he'd learned to rise above it. These conversations weren't lectures. They were genuine exchanges between two people who, despite their vastly different lives, shared a mutual respect for growth and resilience. One afternoon, as they sat together by the fountain, Keanu offered Marcus an invitation that would change everything. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "if you ever want to shadow me during my visits here, you're welcome to join. You might pick up a few things about interacting with people, or maybe we can brainstorm ideas to make the mall even safer." Marcus blinked in disbelief. Was Keanu serious? Shadowing him sounded like something out of a dream. Yet, the sincerity in Keanu's voice left no room for doubt. "Are you sure?" Marcus asked hesitantly. "I wouldn't want to bother you." "You wouldn't be bothering me," Keanu assured him with a smile. "Besides, I think it could be fun. For both of us." And so Marcus began accompanying Keanu during his visits to the mall. At first he felt awkward, unsure of where to stand or what to say, but Keanu's easygoing nature put him at ease. Together, they walked through the corridors, greeted employees, and engaged with shoppers. Marcus watched in awe as Keanu effortlessly connected with people from all walks of life. Whether it was complimenting a cashier on her smile or thanking a janitor for keeping the place spotless, Keanu radiated warmth and authenticity. Through these interactions, Marcus gained invaluable insights into leadership and human connection. He saw firsthand how small gestures, like remembering someone's name or offering a kind word, could brighten someone's day. He realized that true authority didn't come from asserting dominance but from earning trust and respect. And most importantly, he learned that everyone, regardless of their role or background, deserved to feel valued. As weeks turned into months, Marcus transformed, not just as a security guard but as a person. His colleagues noticed the change almost immediately. Gone was the overly cautious rookie who jumped to conclusions. In his place stood a confident, empathetic professional who approached every situation with patience and care. Shoppers commented on how approachable he was, and employees appreciated his willingness to lend a hand whenever needed. Keanu, too, took pride in seeing Marcus's progress. Though he never sought recognition for his role in the young guard's development, his influence was undeniable. By choosing forgiveness over resentment, understanding over judgment, and mentorship over punishment, Keanu had sparked a chain reaction of positivity that rippled through the entire mall community. Looking back, Marcus often reflected on how differently things could have turned out if Keanu had reacted with anger instead of grace. That single act of kindness had not only saved his career, but had also reshaped his perspective on life. It taught him that everyone makes mistakes, and that those mistakes, when handled with compassion, can become stepping stones toward growth. Little did Marcus know, however, that this was just the beginning. The lessons he'd learned from Keanu would soon inspire him to take bold steps of his own, turning the mall into a place where kindness and inclusivity reigned supreme. And as he stood by the fountain one evening, watching families laugh and children play, Marcus felt a deep sense of gratitude for the man who had changed his life and for the second chance he'd been given. Months had passed since the infamous incident at Pinecrest Mall, and Marcus had undergone a remarkable transformation. What started as a humiliating mistake had turned into a journey of self-discovery and growth, largely thanks to Keanu Reeves's unexpected mentorship. The lessons Marcus learned weren't just about being a better security guard. They were about becoming a better person. And now, armed with newfound confidence and empathy, Marcus was ready to take things a step further. Inspired by Keanu's leadership style and his ability to connect with people from all walks of life, Marcus decided to create something meaningful within the mall community. He proposed the idea of starting a mentorship program for new hires, particularly those in entry-level positions like himself when he first joined. The goal was simple: to help newcomers navigate the challenges of their roles while fostering a culture of kindness, respect, and inclusivity. At first, the management team was hesitant. Mentorship programs weren't exactly common in shopping malls, and some worried it might disrupt the existing workflow. But Marcus was persistent. Drawing on his own experiences, he explained how such a program could prevent misunderstandings, like the one that almost cost him his job. "Imagine if I'd had someone guiding me during my first week," he said during a meeting. "Someone who could have shown me how to balance vigilance with compassion. Maybe then I wouldn't have made the mistakes I did." His sincerity won them over. With the support of the general manager and Keanu's quiet encouragement, the mentorship program was officially launched. Marcus took charge of organizing training sessions, pairing experienced employees with rookies, and creating resources to help participants develop essential skills. It wasn't long before the initiative gained traction, earning praise from both staff and shoppers alike. One of the key components of the program was storytelling. Marcus believed that sharing personal experiences could be a powerful way to teach important lessons. During orientation sessions, he often recounted the day he mistook Keanu for a suspicious loiterer, using humor and humility to break the ice. "Let me tell you," he'd say with a grin, "you think you're nervous? Try kicking out a celebrity without realizing it." His openness helped new hires feel more comfortable discussing their own fears and insecurities, creating an environment where everyone felt supported. But Marcus didn't stop there. He also introduced workshops focused on emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and diversity awareness. These sessions were designed to help employees recognize unconscious biases and avoid making snap judgments. Lessons Marcus knew firsthand could make all the difference. Role-playing exercises allowed participants to practice handling difficult scenarios, such as dealing with upset customers or addressing potential security threats, in ways that prioritized empathy and understanding. Keanu continued to play an active role in the program, though he remained humble about his involvement. Occasionally, he'd drop by unannounced to observe a training session or share insights from his own life. Once, during a workshop on customer service, he told the group about a time early in his acting career when he was denied entry to a club because the bouncer didn't believe he belonged there. "I was dressed casually, just like anyone else," he recalled, "and instead of arguing, I walked away. But it taught me something valuable. Never underestimate someone based on how they look." The story resonated deeply with the trainees, many of whom came from diverse backgrounds and had faced similar situations themselves. Hearing Keanu speak so candidly about his struggles reinforced the message Marcus had been trying to convey, that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter who they are or what they wear. As the mentorship program flourished, its impact began to extend beyond the staff. Shoppers noticed a shift in the overall atmosphere of the mall. Employees greeted visitors with genuine smiles, went out of their way to assist those in need, and handled conflicts with patience and professionalism. Even minor interactions, like holding doors open or offering directions, carried a warmth that hadn't been as evident before. Word spread quickly, and soon Pinecrest Mall became known not only for its upscale stores, but also for its exceptional customer service. Marcus, meanwhile, found fulfillment in his new role as a mentor. Watching others grow under his guidance gave him a sense of purpose he'd never experienced before. One of his proudest moments came when a young cashier named Emily approached him after completing the program. She thanked him for teaching her how to handle difficult customers with grace and assured him that she no longer dreaded confrontations. "You showed me that even when people are rude, we can still respond with kindness," she said. "It makes such a big difference." The ripple effects of Marcus's efforts reached even higher levels of the organization. Impressed by the success of the mentorship program, the mall's upper management decided to expand it to other locations under their umbrella. They invited Marcus to lead workshops at these sister properties, giving him a platform to share his story and inspire others. For someone who once doubted his abilities, traveling to different cities and speaking in front of large groups was a daunting, yet exhilarating experience. Of course, none of this would have been possible without Keanu's influence. Though he rarely sought the spotlight, his presence loomed large over everything Marcus accomplished. Whether it was through casual conversations by the fountain or quiet acts of encouragement, Keanu had planted the seeds of change that Marcus nurtured into something extraordinary. In return, Marcus made sure to express his gratitude whenever he had the chance. "You've done all the hard work," Keanu told him one evening as they sat together watching the sunset from the rooftop parking lot. "I just pointed you in the right direction." "That's not true," Marcus replied earnestly. "You didn't just point me, you walked alongside me. You showed me what real leadership looks like. Without you, none of this would have happened." Keanu smiled softly, patting Marcus on the shoulder. "Don't sell yourself short. This is your legacy, Marcus. You've created something special here. Keep going." And go he did. As the months rolled on, Marcus continued to innovate and improve the program, always keeping Keanu's teachings close to heart. He introduced guest speakers from various industries, organized team-building activities, and even collaborated with local schools to provide internship opportunities for students interested in retail or hospitality careers. Each new addition brought fresh energy and excitement to the mall, solidifying its reputation as a place where people felt truly valued. Looking back, Marcus realized how far he'd come since that fateful day. From a nervous rookie unsure of his place in the world to a respected leader inspiring others to be their best selves, his journey was nothing short of remarkable. And while he knew he still had much to learn, he also understood that growth was a lifelong process, one fueled by kindness, humility, and the willingness to embrace second chances. For Marcus, the mall was no longer just a workplace. It was a community built on trust, respect, and shared humanity. And at the center of it all stood Keanu Reeves, a man whose quiet grace and unwavering belief in redemption had changed not only Marcus's life, but the lives of countless others. The legacy of the incident at Pinecrest Mall grew far beyond what anyone could have imagined. What began as a simple misunderstanding between Marcus and Keanu Reeves had blossomed into a transformative movement that touched every corner of the mall, and eventually, the wider community. The story of how one man's grace turned another's mistake into an opportunity for growth became a cherished tale among employees, shoppers, and even local media outlets. Months after the mentorship program took off, its impact was undeniable. Employees who once dreaded coming to work now greeted each day with enthusiasm. They felt valued not just as workers, but as individuals contributing to something meaningful. Customers noticed the difference too. Whether it was a friendly smile from a cashier, a security guard offering help finding a store, or a janitor going out of their way to clean up a spill, the sense of care and connection permeated every interaction. Pinecrest Mall wasn't just a place to shop anymore. It was a hub of kindness and positivity. One particularly heartwarming moment came during the holiday season, when the mall hosted its annual Community Day event. Families gathered for carol singing, gift wrapping, and photo booths with Santa Claus. But this year, there was an added feature, a special ceremony honoring acts of kindness performed by mall staff throughout the year. Nominees were chosen based on nominations from co-workers and customers alike, and Marcus himself was invited to present the awards. As he stood at the podium, microphone in hand, Marcus couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since his first days at the mall. He remembered the fear and embarrassment he'd felt after kicking out Keanu, and how close he'd come to losing everything. Now here he was, standing in front of a cheering crowd, celebrating the very values he'd learned through his own redemption. "I used to think being a good security guard meant catching bad guys and enforcing rules," Marcus said, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "But I've come to realize that true safety isn't about keeping people out. It's about making them feel welcome, respected, and cared for. That lesson started with one person, someone many of you know. Well," he paused, turning toward Keanu, who sat quietly in the audience, blending in despite his fame. The room erupted into applause as Marcus continued. "Keanu taught me that leadership is about lifting others up, even when they mess up. He showed me that second chances aren't just possible, they're powerful. And because of him, we've built a community where everyone matters." Tears welled up in the eyes of several employees as Marcus spoke. For many, his words resonated deeply. Some had joined the mall struggling with self-doubt or past failures. Others had faced discrimination or hardship elsewhere. Yet here they were, united by a shared mission to make the world a little brighter, one small act of kindness at a time. The highlight of the evening came when Keanu was asked to say a few words. Reluctantly stepping onto the stage, he waved off the applause with his characteristic humility. "I'm not great at speeches," he admitted with a chuckle, "but I will say this. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. What sets us apart is how we choose to respond to ourselves and to others." His gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of employees, shoppers, and children alike. "When I met Marcus, I saw someone willing to learn and grow." That takes courage. And look at what he's done since then. He's created something amazing here. Not because of me, but because of him. Because he chose to turn a tough moment into an opportunity to change lives. The crowd erupted into cheers once again. But Keanu wasn't finished. Let's remember that we all have the power to do the same thing, he added. Every day, we encounter moments where we can choose kindness over judgment, understanding over anger. Those choices matter. They shape our communities, our relationships, and ultimately ourselves. By the end of the night, the energy in the mall was electric. People lingered long after the ceremony ended, sharing stories, laughing, and embracing one another. It was clear that the spirit of the event had left a lasting impression, one that would carry forward into the new year and beyond. In the weeks that followed, the story of Pinecrest Mall spread beyond its walls. Local newspapers wrote articles praising the mentorship program and highlighting the mall's unique approach to fostering inclusivity and empathy. Social media buzzed with posts from visitors sharing their positive experiences, tagging the mall, and using hashtags like Kindness Matters and Second Chances. Even national outlets picked up the story, showcasing Pinecrest as a shining example of how businesses could prioritize humanity alongside profit. For Marcus, the attention was overwhelming, but gratifying. He never sought recognition for his efforts, but seeing the impact they had made brought him immense joy. More importantly, it reinforced his belief in the ripple effect of kindness. Every training session he led, every employee he mentored, and every customer he helped reminded him that even the smallest actions could create waves of change. Keanu, ever humble, stayed in the background, letting Marcus take center stage. But his influence remained evident in every aspect of the mall's culture. Employees often joked that Keanu was their unofficial mascot, though they knew his role was far greater than that. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that compassion and forgiveness could transform lives in ways no one expected. As time went on, Marcus began dreaming bigger. Inspired by the success of the mentorship program, he proposed expanding its reach to include partnerships with local schools, nonprofits, and community organizations. Together, they launched initiatives aimed at providing job training, mental health resources, and support for underserved populations. Pinecrest Mall became more than just a shopping destination. It became a beacon of opportunity and connection. 1 year after the incident, Marcus stood once again by the fountain where it all began. The water sparkled under the sunlight, reflecting the faces of happy shoppers passing by. He thought about the journey he'd been on, the mistakes, the lessons, the friendships formed along the way. Most of all, he thought about Keanu, whose quiet strength and boundless kindness had changed everything. "Thank you," Marcus whispered softly, knowing Keanu wouldn't hear him but feeling grateful nonetheless, "for believing in me, for showing me the way, for proving that even in our darkest moments there's always a chance to start anew." And as the bustling life of the mall swirled around him, Marcus smiled, knowing that the story wasn't over. It was just beginning. A testament to the enduring power of redemption, compassion, and the belief that everyone deserves a second chance.